Hey there, EB here. Happy Friday. Giving you your weekly update. I gave one in the middle of the week that dealt with the presidential debate. We will talk about that. But before I get started, I want to give a little bit of reflection on that it was 9/11 this week. Um, I can remember where I was when it happened. I had just gotten back from court in Lexington, and I had heard that there was a terrorism incident and a plane, was diverted and was flying towards New York City. And I remember going upstairs in my office, and in the conference room, one of the guys I share an office with was watching TV, and he turned and looked at me, and his eyes were just like, like he had just seen a train run over somebody. And I looked towards the TV, and I saw that one of the World Trade Center buildings was just smoking. And I was like, what happened? What happened? And he said, you're not going to believe it. A plane flew into it, and it, you know, crumbled. And while I was sitting there, the second plane went into the building. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe the second plane went in the other building. And then, of course, that building also crumbled. Um, it was a horrible day for our country. We literally had to wake up, all the Pollyanna views that we had about some of the countries that are against democracy and, burn our flags in their streets and say that they don't like the Western way of life. I think we all had a serious wake up call. I always reflect on 9/11. I watch the proceedings. I talk about it with Renee and the kids. And, it was good to see all of our leaders there, including President Trump, former President Trump, uh, the current vice president, especially after they had a contentious debate the previous night. I was a little disappointed that former President Trump was traveling with a 9/11 denier this week. I don't know, I forget her name, but she's somebody who believes that the United States was responsible for 9/11 and that somehow George Bush knew it was going to happen and that he coordinated and ordered the planes to fly into the Trade Center, go down in Schwenksville, Pennsylvania, and then obviously go into the Pentagon. Um, I'm just really starting to get sick of conspiracy theories. Um, I'm getting sick of hearing that, certain immigrant groups are eating cats and dogs just because that was on the internet. That obviously was debunked not only by the mayor of that town in Ohio, but the governor, Mike DeWitt, who is a Republican, um, who said that there is no truth at all to that story. Um, it may be that some geese were stolen, a Canadian goose, or somebody took that and may have ate it. But to say that cats and dogs are being taken by immigrants is just, it's really concerning, and the fact that former President Trump chose to speak of that on the debate stage was really problematic. The debate was worth watching. I think we were all surprised. At least I was surprised at the polish of Kamala Harris. Um, Whether you think she won or not, I think she won. I think she trucked him. I think she yanked him all over the stage. I think he bit at every piece of bait she threw at him. Um, she had three objectives. She had to come across that she wasn't dumb, as Trump has proclaimed for the last month and a half. She wasn't. She came across as smart. She showed that she had mettle to be a leader. She wasn't scripted, as Trump said. She was showed great alacrity. She was flexible. Um, I don't think she answered a lot of questions as deep as she should have about why she thinks that we're better off today than we were 4 years ago. That should have been answered. And what is her real plan about getting down inflation? Didn't think that was really good on her part. I like the opportunity economy. I like the $50,000 tax credit for a new business. I like the $6,000 child credit. People are getting slaughtered by child care and the child care costs. And the other thing she had to show is that she could stand up to a strong man and stand up to a bully, and she did. She stood up to Trump. Now, I totally do agree that I think that ABC was more aggressive with him than with her, no question about it. But he's supposed to be a tough guy. He's got to handle the heat. I don't like people who complain about the officials when they miss their own jump shot. He had a lot of opportunity to really talk about her record, the immigration issues, and he did not. I thought he was his own worst enemy. He would not admit that he would veto a federal abortion ban, and that's a problem. J.D. Vance said that he would support a federal abortion ban, and then he disagreed with his own vice presidential candidate during the debate. He couldn't say that he wanted Ukraine to win, and that should be a real strong signal that Ukraine should have received, as well as NATO, and certainly was well received by Putin, who couldn't hear our former president say that he wanted Ukraine to win against Russia. He couldn't say he had any regrets about January 6th. Certainly there should be some regrets. He was the commander in chief. It's clear that he didn't offer up 10,000 troops to Nancy Pelosi. Came out. That is clearly false. He did discuss troops, meaning the National Guard, with some of the people in his administration, but he didn't do anything about it, and he has the right to do something about it. He couldn't admit that he lost the election, even after he was confronted with his own words, where he was taped saying that he lost Georgia and Arizona. His answer to that was that he was being sarcastic. So all in all, I think she trucked him. The fact that he doesn't want to debate her again tells me that he's worried that he would have another bad performance. It's not that he won the debate and there's no reason for him to go back and debate her. By all objective metrics, he lost. I know he says that every single poll says that he won the debate and everybody told him that he crushed it. But I think, again, like I said, I was willing to say after Biden debated Trump in June that he shit the bucket and he was horrible, and it cost him his chance at re-election. I'm not a full-blown Democrat, but I'm certainly a middle-of-the-road moderate libertarian, leaning Democratic only because Trump is the Republican candidate. If there was another Republican candidate, I would lean back Republican. I know you won't believe it, but it is the truth. I want to hear Republicans say, hey, he got crushed. He didn't do his best job. He got very antagonistic. He was petulant. He bit the bait on the issue that she said that people are leaving your rallies because they're bored. He started talking about crowd size, and when he, got into pets, dogs and cats, he lost the debate. It was interesting this week that Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney came out and said that they would be voting for Kamala Harris. Dick Cheney is probably one of the most conservative Republican hardline politicians that has come down in the last 40 years. The only one I could think of that would be more would be Don Rumsfeld, who served as Secretary of Defense. Cheney and Liz Cheney, his daughter, are going to support and vote for Kamala. George Bush said that he was not going to endorse anybody, which is an anti-endorsement against President Trump. Alberto Gonzales, who was the Attorney General under George Bush, a strong Republican who used to be a judge on the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, and in Texas, he was the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court. He said that he's going to be voting for Kamala Harris, so that's a big thing. To me, though, the biggest endorsement came from Taylor Swift, and she waited until after the debate to say that she is going to support and vote for Kamala Harris. And even when she accepted the award this week for Album of the Year at the award ceremony. She said, "Get out and vote." So she is planning on using her platform, her power, the number of supporters, to tout Kamala Harris. And she's a childless cat lady, one of those childless cat ladies that J.D. Vance has mocked and said they don't have an interest in the system. I got to tell you, anybody who says that that endorsement isn't worth anything is completely out of their minds. Like Lady Gaga, she has a following across the spectrum. Certainly the youth vote. It's not just 13-year-olds, it's 18-year-olds. It's my friend Mandy Matney, who's 34 years old. People who are turning 18 years old. She will get a lot of people to go vote for Kamala Harris. And I got a feeling you're going to see her front and center. And it's going to be interesting because Jason Kelsey, her boyfriend, can't come out and say he supports Trump because that would create some acrimony. I think the fact that he doesn't say anything is a statement in itself because usually my understanding is he's a pretty conservative guy. So I think the Taylor Swift endorsement is something that is huge, or as Trump says, huge. J.D. Vance came out and said he didn't think it means anything. She's nothing but an out-of-touch billionaire who doesn't have to worry about the price of cereal and the price of eggs. You know, she's got billions and billions of dollars. She doesn't understand what the regular person is. Does he forget who his running mate is? A self-touted billionaire, a gazillionaire with a 757 plane and gold toilets. How does Donald Trump have any more of a feel for the layperson than Taylor Swift does? I think it was a stupid statement by J.D. Vance. One of the issues that came out this week is President Biden said he was going to relax restrictions on long-range missiles. That's another big thing that no one has talked about. That is directly a reflection on Russia and Iran. The United States is prepared to back Israel and stop a Middle East war, and most certainly they're going to protect Ukraine. Hunter Biden pled guilty this week on tax evasion charges, and now he's got to be sentenced both from the Delaware conviction on the gun charge and now these on tax evasions. It wouldn't surprise me now if he does receive a pardon from his father or some type of clemency, so that he doesn't have to go to prison now that Joe Biden is not running for re-election. The Boeing starliner came home, limping home, without the two astronauts on it. I think we have to be really careful with these spaceships. I can remember being in law school. I was at the lobby and the TV was on and we watched the space shuttle and it blew up and Christy McConnell was on there. And it really was the first time that I started reflecting on that the space program is incredibly dangerous, and now I worry about, are we sending too many people up in space? We're letting private companies send people up in space. Somebody walked in space who was a private citizen and not an astronaut. So that's one thing that we have to think about. The South Carolina Supreme Court had a monumental ruling this week where they held that school vouchers are unconstitutional, and using your tax dollars to be able to send your kids to private school violates the state constitution. I am for that decision. I believe that we need to build up public schools, not build more private schools. I think we need to improve public school education, and I think this was a good ruling. I do not like the fact that private schools are springing up and charter schools. We need to improve and dump this money into improving public school education. I am just really disillusioned. We had the shooting in Georgia, which really was a disgrace. The 14-year-old, the behavior of his father, knowing that the kid had mental illness issues, buying him a semi-automatic AR. It's troubling. I totally agree for his prosecution. And what really had me depressed is I have Whitney McDuff and Caitlin Marcelette, who helped me with my marketing. One here is in South Carolina, and the other's in Colorado. And their kids are now doing active shooter drills in elementary school and nursery school. They call it the Turtle. And Caitlin's daughter is a year and a half old, and they're already teaching them to get under the desk and be quiet. And Whitney's son had to do it at 7 years old. What has happened to us? Where is the innocence of our country gone, and the greatness that this is where we are, where young kids now have to be so scared going to school, and parents have to be worried about dropping their kids off? It really made me upset. We will talk about the NFL. I want to talk about Tyreek Hill from a legal standpoint. I certainly have told my wife and my children that if you get stopped by the police, you comply. But by the same token, I thought the fact and the behavior of some of these police officers was atrocious. Certainly Tyreek mouthed off to them. He was a block from the stadium. He didn't comply, and he rolled down his window, then rolled it up. His windows were too dark. I certainly understand the police's position when somebody won't roll down their window and it's a dark inside the car and dark smoked up window, that the police could fear for their safety. I think there's blame on both parts, but I really think throwing him on the ground and then putting in handcuffs his two teammates that stopped him was very problematic. That was a 27-year police veteran who should have known better. So I think we should use it as a learning lesson. But my fear was, if that was not Tyreek Hill, but just an everyday average Black American, African American, what would have happened to that guy? Could we have another situation where he was shot? So we clearly have a police citizen problem in our country. We are watching right now the White Queen, the White Princess, and Spanish Princess on Stars. It's an amazing series about Elizabeth and King Henry VIII. Really enjoying it. If you want to watch it, you should watch it. Let's talk a little bit about college football. Clemson got their clock cleaned by Georgia in the first game, but they looked unbelievable against the giant killers, Appalachian State, last week. 525 yards in the first half. I don't think I've ever seen any football team click better at offense. So we'll wait to see if the game against Georgia was an anomaly, or can they really compete against the top 12 teams and find their way in the playoff. University of South Carolina did an amazing job in Kentucky. Went to a away game. Lenoris Sellers had a great game. Our running game was good. Defense was smash mouth football. I thought it was really an incredible game. Texas blew out Michigan. Steve Sarkisian, they're the third-ranked country. Powerhouse. Michigan definitely has suffered by Jim Harbaugh leaving and losing all the people from their offensive line, their quarterback, running back, and wide receivers to the NFL. They killed them. The Colorado-Nebraska game, Nebraska is back. Matt Rule, who came from the Panthers, previous coach at Baylor and at Temple, is doing a great job. That young quarterback, who's a freshman, is amazing. Deion Sanders is running a pretty bad program right now. Shedeur Sanders, his son, who's the quarterback, also left the field before the game was over, which is incredibly selfish and not a good team leader. I think he should suffer for that. And Alabama and Oregon are not as good as they're ranked. I think they're overrated. And look, Notre Dame was the 5th team in the country, and they got trucked by Northern Illinois. So college football is really interesting right now. The pro football is awesome. I think the premier AFC teams are the Texans and the Chiefs, and the premier team in the NFL is the 49ers. Certainly the Bills last night looked good. I feel bad for Tua Tagovailoa. The Miami quarterback had another concussion. I'm really worried what's going to happen to him long term. It's his third or fourth major concussion. C.J. Stroud is an amazing quarterback. Jaden Daniels had a pretty good debut with Washington, even though they lost. Daniel Jones is an absolute bust. I don't know why the Giants keep going with him. They paid him a lot of money a couple years ago, but the worst signing ever, and I used to be a big fan of his, is Deshaun Watson. His money is guaranteed $250,000. I think he's a shadow of his former self due to these sexual allegation matters that are constantly brought up against him. There's a new one that was brought out this week that may ultimately invalidate his contract under the morality clause. The attorney has proof of this, where he sexually forced himself on another woman. His behavior is troubling, and he's not a good quarterback anymore. So that is a problem. Bryce Young appears to be somewhat of a bust. It's still early in his second year, but he is not living up to being the first pick in the draft. Kirk Cousins also started bad, but my Birds, getting Saquon Barkley, who had 3 touchdowns in the game against the Packers where Jordan Love got hurt. I thought that Jalen Hurts had a good game, and the offensive line did okay without Kelsey being at center. So that's one of the things. I also want to say that this week 11 different military leaders came out against Trump. Trump said that he would be jailing voters, news people, and some military people in the upcoming, if he wins after the upcoming election. I think that him coming out and saying that, he using Viktor Orban, who is the leader of Hungary and a dictator, as a character reference, didn't help him too much. McMaster, Mattis, who are ultra conservatives, John Bolton, Admiral Steve Abbott, and 4-star General John Kelly came out against Trump this week. They said he pals up the dictators, weakens NATO, creates too much of an isolationist atmosphere for the United States versus the rest of the world, and that he can't keep state secrets. So that is pretty much what we have in the news this week. Some of the questions I have, Cindy said she's been extremely frustrated with all the cases surrounding Brian Koberger in Iowa. So have I. Frustrated that this court has allowed 2 years of motions from the defense, with the judge taking 3 months or longer to come back to answer all of them. Kind of sounds like Judge Cannon in the federal documents case in Fort Pierce, Florida, involving former President Trump. He doesn't seem to have a backbone at all, and I'm equally frustrated that the prosecution has lackluster rebuttals to all of these motions. It is true, the defense won a major motion this week to push the trial out from where it was scheduled in Iowa. In Idaho, probably will go to the state capitol. The defendants do have rights. The problem with our justice system, and Amanda asked me if I could change one thing about the criminal justice system, what would it be, is the speed of the system. Certainly defendants are entitled to due process. Certainly the defendants should have all of their constitutional rights protected, but we have a speedy trial, and justice needs to be served. Justice not only against a criminal who's charged, but for the victims. And my gripe with the system is it takes so long, and nobody pushes judges to render decisions. So I totally agree with you, Cindy and Amanda. I think it was a bad decision moving the trial from that county in Idaho. I think it was wrong. Naomi says, is it possible to ensure that illegals will not be able to vote? I do agree that illegals should not be able to vote. I do agree that there should be some form of identification to be able to vote. I don't think illegals are going to be able to vote simply by having an identification card, but I do understand your concern and I agree with you. Rebecca says a close friend of the Murdaugh family posted this week that cousin Eddie's health is in rapid decline. Apparently, Eddie pled guilty to everything, included to Alex over a month ago, and it was sealed, doing an ongoing investigation. If that is true, that would be problematic. That's a public case. He may be cooperating against others, including Alex. I have heard his health has gone bad. My friend Amy represents him, so it'll be really interesting to see if a plea did take place. Did Alex ever take a polygraph? He did, and he failed. And they tried to use that in court against him. The prosecution did in federal court to get an upward enhancement. Judge Gergel wouldn't consider it, but he would consider the acts to upwardly enhance him, and that's why his sentence was 40 years and not the 20 to 25. But Alex did fail a polygraph. Jerry Abbott Glavis says, "Go Eagles, go Birds." Casey says, Casey Odell, my good friend, said the first time my daughter told me they were having active shooter drills at school, her heart broke. She said, "Mom, it's just like any other drill, like a fire drill." No, it's not. Fire drills are different. Fire drills are, a fire may start in the chemistry lab or in the school cafeteria. Active shooters are different, and so I am heartbroken like you, Casey. Sue Johnson says, "Yay for the North Carolina, not your decision. My daughter and son-in-law are teachers here." Linda Limerick says, "We need to vote on that." I would assume that, I don't know what she's referring to. Corey Burns, I appreciate you showing up. Linda, I appreciate you showing up. And that is it. I want everybody to have a great weekend. Looks like it's going to rain out there. And I will see you next week. My book now is being printed. I know I keep saying that, but it is in print, and I'm really excited about it. On Monday on Good Skill Podcast, the guest you're going to hear is Laurie Lapine. She is a personal trainer for people in their 50s and 60s. She's an amazing physical specimen for her age. She is optimistic. She will get you motivated. She's all about movement. I think you're going to like it. So with that, EB out.